Hi, today we'll go through Python variables and data types. In this video, we'll cover integers and strings. More data types will follow in later videos. Now we'll start with a presentation and basic ideas and then jump to Google Colab. If you haven't installed Google Colab yet, check out my previous video on how to do it. The link is in the description. So by the end of this video, you'll have a deeper understanding of how and when to use variables, how to get input from users, and make simple operations with it. Before kicking off, do subscribe to my channel so you never miss upcoming football analytical content, tutorials, and updates. Awesome! So let's get started. Imagine we want to print out the number of goals Francesco Totti scored in Serie A. For this, we may use the code on the screen, which is using print function and inserting what we want to print in the parentheses. Looks good, but how another person would know that what this number means? Even we could be having difficulties to recall its meaning after a while. To make it more user-friendly, we may add some text explanation, like you see on your screen. So now we are printing out that Francesco Totti goals, and then we print out the number of his goals, which is 250, which is pretty impressive, I think. Uh, so So far, we've used a number and text, which is the text is Francesco Totti goals, and the number is 250, the number of goals he scored in Serie A. In Python word, text is called a string, and numbers are integers. Now imagine that we want to print out the number of goals Lautaro Martinez has scored in Serie A. We may use the same approach, but there is a problem. Unlike Totti, Lautaro Martinez hasn't retired yet, and he'll likely to score another goal soon enough. If you were following Italian Serie A, you know that Lautaro scores a lot this season. So what should we do? Should we change the number over and over again when Lautaro scores? Nah, that's not what programming is used for. We may use variables instead. So what is a variable? You can think of it as a storage unit where you can store different kind of information. Basically, any kind of information. In today's video, we'll go over text and numbers. And by the way, we use variables for storing information like Totti goals as well. It's just much more convenient. So in this case, where you see on the screen, we are using goals variable and we assigned to this variable number of goals Lautaro Martinez scored, which is 90. And then we use print function to print out the text Lautaro Martinez goals and to print out the number of goals he scored. And instead of putting the number, which is 90, inside the parentheses of the print function, we put the name of the variable and we get the same result. Lautaro Martinez goals 90. So what should we do when Lautaro scores the game? Just like you'd imagine, we'll need to increment the number of goals he scored, like it is shown on the screen, where we are updating goals variable adding 1. So as you see, goals equals goals plus 1, which means we are updating the goals variables, adding to the old version of this variable, which contained 90, and we are adding 1. And as a result, as you can see, when we print out the goals variable after this operation, we'll get 91 goal by Lautaro Martinez. Now, what is important, we could put in a variable basically any kind of information, and we can write text. We shouldn't write text over and over again, and we can store this text, Lautaro Martinez goals in our example, in a variable as well, and then use it to print this text just like we did with goals variable. Now let's figure out how many goals on average Lautaro scores per 90 minutes in Serie A if he has played so far 12,021 minutes. Well, to do so, first of all, we see that we stored the number of goals and the number of minutes he played in a variables, goals and minutes, respectively. Then what we do, we divide the number of minutes by 90. Why we do this? We wanna know how many 90 minutes periods are there within these minutes, because we wanna know how many goals Lautaro scored per 90 minutes. And then we store the result in a variable called times underscore 90. And by the way, it's 133 and 57.57. And then what we do, we divide the number of goals by the number of 90 minutes periods to get the result we are looking for. And we store this result in a variable goals underscore per underscore 90, goals per 90 minutes. And then we print out this variable. And it turns out that Lautaro Martinez scores 0.67 goals per 90 minutes, which is pretty impressive, I think. Okay, so as you see, the result is 0.76 is a number with a flowing point. It's not a whole number. And there is a difference between data types when we have a whole number and when we have a number with decimals. And the whole number is an integer. And this type of number, when we have a floating point called float, as you can probably imagine, and as you can probably imagine, it is used a lot. Now, it's not always clear what kind of variable type we have. For example, a number in a string is a string element, not an integer. A number surrounded by quote marks is a string as well. So it would be great to have some kind of way to check what the variable type is. And there is one. We can just use type function, as you can see on your screen, and inserting inside parentheses our variable we want to check. So, for example, we could check goals variable, and we see that it will return class int, which means it's an integer. Goals per 90 is class float, which is floating number, which is of course true. And finally, we can check what the name variable is, the type of the name variable is, and it's str, which stands for string, obviously. Now, variable names. Another important topic. Variable names can be any size, basically any size you want. And it can contain both letters and numbers, but they cannot start with a number. So the variable name 1 and then name or 1 underscore name is not legal. The Python will throw an error. So we can also use the underscore character as well. Be aware also of Python reserved keywords. There are like 35 reserved keywords, and the link with them is in the description. Now let's take a look at statements. What is statement? It's just the basic terminology, I would say. A statement is a piece of code that can be executed by Python. So when we assign a number to a variable, like for example, goals equals 10, it's a statement because it executes, it assigns this number to a variable. Any calculation is a statement. Uh, if we just write the variable like goals, as you can see on the screen, the last row, it's not a statement, it's just a variable. Now let's take a look at operators. There are few operators which are just like in mathematics: plus, minus, multiplication, division, and there are two special operators in Python, which are double division sign and the percentage sign division. The first one, double division sign, gives us float result, and the modulus operator, which is the percentage division operator, gives us the remainder of a division. So if we take a look at this example on your screen, we see that if we divide 7 by 3 using the standard division operator, we'll get basically the result we expect from any regular calculator. If we divide the same numbers 7 by 3 using the float or double division sign, we'll get 2 because it's floor results and there are only 2 whole 3 numbers in 7, so it returns 2. Now if we want to get the remainder of the division, we would use a modulus operator. It's the percentage sign, and in this example, if we divide 7 by 3 using this modulus operator, we'll get 1 because the remainder of this division is 1. There is also one tricky thing, which is sometimes it could be useful. If we want to get the last digit of a number, we just can divide it using the modulus operator by 10. And therefore, if we want to get two last digits, we could divide the number using modulus operator by 100. And as you can see in the example, it works pretty well. Now, let's jump to the order of operations. There is nothing new, basically. It follows the rule you probably familiar from your math lessons. And first we do the parentheses, then exponentiation and multiplication and division, and finally addition and subtraction. Now let's go to string operations. Funny enough, but we can use mathematical operators with strings. So as you can see on your screen, if we are assigned to strings, which numbers, but they are strings because they are inside the quote marks. Uh, 18 and 11. So if we add these two variables, we'll not get the sum of these numbers. We'll concatenate or to combine together these two strings, which in our case will be 1811, and it will not be a number. Once again, if we check the type of variable total, it will be string as well. And we also can multiply uh, string by a number, and in this case it will just duplicate this string, or if we multiply by 3, for example, it will return 3 copies of this string, which is very useful in some situations, I must say. Now let's jump to comments. A comment is a piece of text that is not executed or ignored by Python. It's very useful. Yeah, sorry, comments. It's very useful and it's very important to comment your code, writing down what exactly it does and why we do this. Because trust me, within just a couple of days, you will be having a hard time recalling what your code was meant to do. And it's very frustrating and sometimes takes a lot of time to figure this out once again without any clues. So do comment your code. You will thank yourself later. Now let's go back to the user input. So let's help a user to calculate the average goals per 90 minutes, for example. And using this example, we'll see how we can implement user input. So in order to get an input from user, we use input function as you see on your screen. And in order to give some clue to user what we are expecting from him or her, insert the text or string inside the parentheses. And in order to save the user's answer or information that user types in, we store the result, in our case, in a variable goals and in a variable means. And then what we need to do then, if we want to calculate something, to do math operations with these variables, we want to convert these variables from strings, and by default all the user input are strings, and we need to convert these strings into integer. And the way we do this, we just put this variable we want to convert inside the parentheses and use the function we want to convert to. So in our example, int stands for integer. If we wanted to do floor, we would type floor, and inside the parentheses we would insert the variable. And the same thing we do with the means variable. Then we can calculate the same using the same logic we used before, and then they print out the result. Now it's basically all with the presentation, and we are ready to jump to the practical side of this video, and we are ready to jump to the Google Colab. Welcome to the Google Colab. Once again, if you haven't installed Google Colab yet, check my previous video. The link is in description. It will show you how to install Google Colab. Now let's start. First of all, how Google Colab works. There are two options, two cell options we can add and execute. First option is code, and the second option is text. The names are self-explanatory. So let's add code. And for example, we can write x equals 10. And that means that we assign 10 to a variable x. And then we want to take a look what x stores, and it returns 10. Now you may notice that we haven't used print function as before. You can use print functions. In other situations, you can you can just type the name of the variable and it will print what it stored, what it has inside. We'll cover this later on. Now, second type of a cell is a text, which is self-explanatory. This is a text, and this this cell is not executable. So you may use it just to write a headline, write like a really long comment or something like that. Any text you want to add to your notebook. And yeah, by the way, these Google Colab documents, they are called notebooks. Now, how we can execute these cells? There are two ways to do this. First, we can click on this play button, and second, we can click on Control Enter or Command Enter if you are using Mac, I suppose. Okay, so let's get started. Let's create, or if we are using programming language programming terms define a few variables and assign numbers or integers to them. And just a reminder, integer is any whole number without decimals that could be both positive and negative. So we'll assign 10, an integer, to a variable named goals underscore 1, and we will assign -2 to a goal difference. And let's execute this. I will use this option of executing when I'm clicking on this button, just so you see what I'm doing. Now let's print and take a look what we have in these variables. And we have 10 and -2, which is kind of logical. No surprises here. Now let's have a look without print function. And it prints out only the last um, variable, which is -2. Why? Because by default, uh, Google Colab prints the last variable. So if you need to print both variables or all the variables, you can use print, or you can use these variables. You can write these variables with commas, just like we did over here. Now let's go a step further. Let's define a variable named average goals match and assign a float number, which is a number with a decimal point, to this variable. And let's execute this. Let's have a look what we have. Now let's overwrite this variable. What does it mean and how can we overwrite? Well, we just may assign a new number or a new value, if you will, to the same variable, and the variable, the value it stores changes as well. So it was 0.67. Now we assigned 0.62. And if we check what it has now, we see that it has 0.62, which is kind of logical. Now let's assign a number 90 to this variable. Okay, let's execute. Ooh, something wrong. The Python throws an error. And what is it? It is a syntax error, invalid decimal literal. What it means? Well, the problem is we started the name of our variable with a digit, which is illegal in Python world. So what can we do? We can delete this number, or we can add some string element uh, before this number, and now there is nothing wrong with this variable name. So let's move to operators. Let's define a variable and assign an integer to it, which is goals equals 10. Now let's say we want to increment this variable by 2. Say our player scored another 2 goals. So I suppose his match was pretty good. How we can do this? Well, we just update variable by adding to an old version of variable uh, a new number we want to add, or a number we want to increment this variable by. So it is written like goals equal a new variable of goal, a new um, variable of goals equals old version of goals, which has 2 inside, plus 2. And then if we check what goals has, what the variable goals has after this operation, we'll get 12, as you probably imagine. Now there is also an alternative way of doing so, of incrementing or doing simple mathematical operations. We can use this as specifying the name of the variable, then the operation we want to perform, then equal sign, and the number of the number we want to increment this variable by. And if we execute this, we'll see that it is 14 because, well, first of all, we assigned 10 to this variable, then we incremented over here by 2, and now we have incremented the same variable by another 2, so we have 14 now. Now let's assign a text or a string in Python terms to a variable named text, and we can do this by text equals Lautaro Martinez average number of goals per 90 minutes. Now we'll assign two integers to goals and minutes variables, and let's calculate the average number of goals Lautaro Martinez scores per 90 minutes and Serie A. So first of all, we need to calculate how many 90 minutes periods are in total minutes played by Lautaro. And after doing this, by dividing minutes by 90, we will store the result in a variable named times underscore 90. Later on, we need to calculate the number of goals scored per 90 minutes. We do this by dividing the number of goals by number of 90 minutes periods Lautaro had, and storing this result in this variable goals underscore per underscore 90. And later on, we print the text Lautaro Martinez and number of goals. So let's do this. And we have Lautaro Martinez average number of goals per 90 minutes, 0.67. So let's check what types of what data types of these variables are. So the text data type is string, no surprise. Goals and minutes are integers, and times 90 goals per 90 are floats, which is no surprise as well. Now let's deep dive to the division operation because it's the most tricky one in Python. So let's execute this cell. So we see if we use a standard division operator and divide 7 by 3, we'll get 2.33. This is the result we may expect from a regular calculator. Now, if we divide the same numbers but using double division operator, we'll get floored result, which is 2, because there are only two numbers of 3 inside the 7. And if we want to get the remainder of this operation, we, we may use this modulus operator or percentage sign operator. And if we do this, we'll get 1 because this is the remainder. Now, the interesting part, if we want to get a last digit of any number, we can divide this number by 10 using this modulus operator, like over here. And therefore, if we want to get last two digits of any number, we can divide this number by 100 with using this modulus operator, and so on. Now let's make some multiplications, will we? So let's calculate how many goals Lautaro scored if we have the number of goals per 90 minutes and number of 90 minutes periods. And we should get 90 or roughly 90 because we are we are using the same data over here, but the other way around. Let's execute this and we get 89 point almost 5. Why it's not 90? Well, because we are not using all the numbers behind the floating point. Therefore, there is an approximation of the result. Now let's jump to a string operations. If you remember, we can perform string mathematical operations with strings. So let's come back to our Lautaro Martinez and his goals. Let's assign once again the string to a variable. Let's assign number of goals and minutes. Let's calculate the same goals per 90 minutes. And now let's execute this to see, okay, so now we have printed this text variable and the variable with the result in the same row, which is kind of more convenient and useful for our case. And how we do this? Well, we added the text and the result. It is called concatenation, but there is a trick. We can concatenate or combine in a string only string data types. So here we have text, which is string, and then we are adding goals per 90 minutes. So since it's a float, we need to convert this data type to a float. And the way to do this is to use string function str, which converts to a string, and placing the variable we want to convert to a string or any other data type inside the parentheses. And the result you can see over here below this print function. Now, if we check the type of goals per 90, let's do this. It is still the float. Why? Because we haven't changed the data type for this variable. We changed the data type on the fly for this operation only. If we wanted to change, by the way, let's check the data type of this operation, and it's string, obviously. Now, if we want to change the data type of a variable, we need to assign a new variable to this to the old variable, and we do this by goals equals string conversion to a string, the old version of goals. And if we execute this and let's check the type, it should be now string, and it is. Now, how we can improve output, and why should we improve it? Because we, for example, want to write Lautaro Martinez scored on average 0.67 goals per 90 minutes, not separating, so embedding the result inside the string. And we can do this using so-called placeholders in print function and format method. So let's assign the player name, Lautaro Martinez, to the player variable. It will be a string, and assign his average number of goals per 90 minutes to goals per 90. And then we'll use these variables in this print function. Let's print it out. And we see that Lautaro Martinez, which is player, was placed inside these brackets, and the second variables was specified inside the parentheses of the format method was placed inside the second brackets. Therefore, Lautaro Martinez on average scores 0.67 goals per 90 minutes. It is very useful way of printing out, and we'll be using a lot of these kind of things. Now let's do some math operations with strings. So let's assign two strings to two different variables. The string 18, and it is a string because it's within the quote marks. We assign to goals 2022 and 11, string 11, to goals underscore 2023. Now, what we want to do, let's add to these variables and store the result in total underscore one variable. And then let's multiply the first variable by 3 and store in another variable called total underscore 2. Now we want to check what the results are. And as you can probably expect, total underscore 1 combine both these strings, which is 18 and 11. And if you check total underscore 1 type, it will be string. And you see that it's string because this while we print it out, we see that there are quotation marks in front and in the back of this result. It means it is a string. And as to total underscore 2, we see that by multiplying this string 18, we got 3 copies of this string. So this how mathematical operation work, and this is very useful. We'll be using it a lot. Now let's jump to the user input. Well, it's always good to give user opportunity to calculate something and help him or her or them to calculate some kind of statistics. So, for example, our user wants to calculate the average number of goals scored by certain player given per 90 minutes, given the number of goals and the number of minutes this player played in the season. So we do the same operation, and before that we want to ask user this data. So to do this, we use input function, and in parentheses we specify we pass the string which ask user what kind of information we expect from them to type. And in order to save, to store this information, to use it afterwards, we assign this information the user types in to a goals variable. And we do the same with minutes and restoring to mins variable. Now, since we want to perform calculations with this data, with these numbers, we want to convert these variables into strings data type, and we do this with these 2 rows. Then we calculate what we want to calculate and print the results. Let's execute this and, for example, enter the number of goals. Uh, we'll use the same numbers, 90, and enter the number of minutes played in the season. It was something like this. I don't remember the exact number, but yeah, more or less the same. So your player on average scored 0.67 goals per 90 minutes, which kind of amazing, I think, once again. Now let's jump to the comments, a very important section, trust me. There are 2 types of comments you may use. First, one-liner, and you use this sign in order to write a one-liner. Everything uh, that you write after this sign is not executed and ignored by Python. If you want to include multiple lines, you can use this way by using 3 quotation marks before and quick quotation marks after your comment. So everything which is inside these quotation marks are not executed and ignored by Python. Let's have a look. So for example, we assign b, or let it be string b, to a variable xyz, and then we want to print this variable. Let's execute this, and we see Python throws an error because here it is, name error. Name XYZ is not defined. Why it's not defined? Because Python has no idea what this XYZ, because he ignores this line. Now there is another example with multi-line comments. We assign text to this variable and then the float number to this, and we want to print um, this line using these 2 variables. We can execute this, and once again the Python throws an error because name player 1 is not defined. Why he's not mentions goals per 90? Well, because he finds the first error and he stops and throw an error. He's not going further. So yeah, so that's how comments work. That's basically it for today. And today we covered variables and data types. Now you have some understanding of how and when to use variables, how to get input from users and make simple operation with them. To continue this learning journey, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel to never miss a single tutorial and updates. You can show your support by buying me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching. Cheers!